Hello, I am Bonni Howard, and this is The Chronically Courageous, my YouTube channel, as well as my podcast. Thank you for being here. Today, first, I want to introduce myself a little bit because I just recently started this YouTube channel, and you may or may not know about my background. So, real briefly, I am a person that has always been very driven. I was highly educated and very career motivated, single mother, and I 8 years ago went on disability, not by my own choosing, but because I was unable to continue to work, and my employer and I both knew it, and it had to come to an end. So now I have spent the last 8 years kind of trying to deconstruct my life and understand what my new life looks like and how to live that life as best I can, as peacefully as I can, and happily as I can, and with purpose, and all of those things that we all want. So my goal in sharing this information with you that I'm going to be sharing going forward on this channel is really to help you feel less alone. If you do have a chronic illness of any type, I feel like there's such a common thread between all of us. Regardless of what the name of your illness is, I think we all have so many of the same things to contend with. We have the difficulties of managing romantic relationships with chronic illness, managing friendships, and keeping up with our social lives, and a lot of times having to cancel, not being able to maintain our plans, and just really not having the energy to even sometimes call or text our friends. So, there's so many, and then of course there's the financial part of things, not being able to independently support myself. Like I said, I'm on disability, and I was someone that I was worked, I think, from the time I was 12 years old. So this has been a huge change for me. And there's just so many both physical and psychological components to being chronically ill that we have to deal with. And I've really learned so much of it through trial and error over the last 8 years. And I've made a lot of mistakes along the way, but I feel like I've learned so much, and I've come to a much better place in my life where I feel a lot more at peace with where I am. And my goal is really to share that with you and to help this process be a little bit easier for you if you can learn even just one thing from me along the way. So I hope you'll come along for the ride and subscribe to my YouTube channel. And if you are listening on audio, ring the bell so you don't miss any future episodes. And let's go. So today what I want to speak about is something I came up with. It was an idea that came to me when I was looking at some old photos, and I realized I hadn't been in the workplace for 8 years, and that's a long time. And like I said, I've learned a lot over these last 8 years, and I came up with something I like to call the Chronic Illness Warrior's Bill of Rights. Now, these are 11 things that I feel every person with chronic illness is entitled to and should advocate for themselves, because there are, just like I said, so many difficulties to deal with. And if we can employ a couple of these things in our lives, hopefully all 11 of them, but if you just take one thing away from this video that is helpful for you, then I'll be very happy. I'll be very excited, and I will feel like I've served my purpose. Number 1, you have the right to refuse unsolicited advice. Hear that again. You have every right to refuse unsolicited advice. And you're probably nodding along with me and smiling and thinking, oh yeah, I've had a lot of that. I know I have. I mean, funny story of many stories. I've had a friend come up and tell me that they could cure my incurable genetic illness with a smoothie. So, I mean, it really gets that ridiculous. And most of the time people are extremely well-meaning. They're well-intentioned. They don't mean any harm, but let's face it. I mean, you're going to get a lot of advice that's really not very helpful, and in some cases harmful, because it can either lead you down a path that is not medically substantiated, not scientifically proven, and that gives you false hope. something that's happened to me many times. Or it can just, kind of feel frustrating for you because you know in your heart of hearts that it's not something that's going to be helpful, and yet you feel sometimes obligated to sit there and nod along and listen to this person. So, I mean, if you're comfortable, you have my permission to tell them, listen, I've received lots of advice. I'd really rather follow the advice of my doctors, or, I've tried that, or, however you feel comfortable handling it. Or if you're not comfortable, just listen and then just, walk away and, just take it for what it's worth, and don't put it into your life. So that's the first thing. I think that sometimes, people just are not comfortable knowing that you're sick. And to make themselves feel more comfortable, they're going to do anything and everything they can to make you feel better so that they can feel better. And that's not your responsibility to make other people feel better. You have to live this life that you've been given, and if somebody else can't handle it, then that's not your problem to solve. So please don't feel like you need to. Oh, and another thing I'd like to add is, please try not to be susceptible to all the, fake cures that are out there, because there are so many people out there selling snake oil. They're going to sell you all these, coaching programs and potions and supplements and all kinds of things that, that they're going to swear up and down will cure you. And it's so easy to buy into that stuff when you're in a place of desperation and wanting to believe it will work. So again, try to, limit your advice to two groups of people. I would say medical professionals with scientifically proven evidence for the thing they're proposing, or people that have walked in your shoes and have had a similar experience and had great results trying a particular thing. Number 2, you have the right to take whatever medication and supplements help increase your quality of life. So many times we will come into contact with people that try to convince us that Western medicine, big pharma, all of it is bad. Not a huge fan of big pharma either, but I will tell you, without pharmaceuticals, I would probably be in bed most of the day, and my life would be very different than it is with the pharmaceuticals. That said, it's story time. So a couple of years ago, I got involved with a group of people that was very much anti-Western medicine. They were very new agey and into all kinds of pseudoscientific cures and things. And I fell into that rabbit hole very deeply, mostly because I was desperate and I really just wanted to believe that I could be 100% better and cured. And didn't work out so well. I wound up taking myself off a bunch of my prescription medicines, not under the supervision of a doctor. See, I told you I made lots of mistakes. I wasn't kidding. Please don't do that. Please, please, please don't take yourself off your medicine without being under your doctor's supervision. It worked out really poorly for me. I wound up getting very, very sick and very anxious and depressed when I realized that my other methods, my kind of pseudoscientific methods, weren't working, and it was a bad scene. And it took me a long time to get back on the medicines that I needed to get me back to where I had started out from. So please, please, please be careful with that, and please try not to feel any shame in taking whatever medicine you need, whether it be for a psychological or a physical condition. I take both. So I think I'm on 5 or 6 different prescriptions right now. I try not to take things that I don't need to take, but I know from experience that these things that I'm on are things that, in fact, I need to take to improve my quality of life. And I encourage you to do the same. Number 3, you have every right to say no to things that make you feel worse. I think many of us are people pleasers. We've spent so much of our lives trying to pretend like we're okay and keep a smile on our faces and go along with everybody. And that can be really damaging. So if you are asked to go to a party or an event, or even have a phone call that you don't feel like you have the energy for, you have every right to say no. And there are nice ways to say it. You can say, listen, I really don't have the energy for that right now. I would love to do it some other time, but right now I'm really struggling. And anybody who really truly cares about you is going to understand that, and they're not going to pressure you to do things that are going to harm you. Another kind of a little story that I had to do recently, I was invited on a beautiful trip with my fiance's family, and all of his extended family was going to Patagonia. And I love to travel. I love to experience new things. And of course, I love to be with my fiance, and his family is great too. So I had to make a really difficult choice, and I didn't make it immediately. I took my time and I kind of weighed and measured, how is this going to impact me? And I knew from experience that going on a 24-hour travel, flights and cars and everything, and then getting there and then doing all the activities and waking up early, as much as I wanted to believe that I could do it, I knew in my heart of hearts that this was something that was a no for me, and I had to say no. And it was sad, and but I know that it was the right decision for me. So sometimes we have to make these difficult decisions, and we have to say no even when we want to say yes. And that's okay too. If if somebody asks you something and you don't feel like you're capable of it, you can say, I wish with all of my heart that I could do this, but I know from experience that doing this is going to be more harmful to me, and I really can't afford to risk my health right now. So I really need to take care of myself. I hope you'll understand. And again, anybody who truly cares about you will understand that. Another note on that is that I think there was a time when I felt like I needed to respond to people right away. I needed to have my phone on all the time and respond to text messages right away and social media posts. And when people commented, I needed to respond to that. And that's no longer the case. My phone is on silent all day long. I look at it frequently enough where if somebody needs me, I'll know about it pretty quickly. But I refuse to be a slave to my phone dinging and donging all day long. I don't, that sucks my energy. I have a limited amount of energy, as I'm sure you do too, if you have a chronic illness. So taking your time to respond when you're able is perfectly fine. And again, I think, I have this group of friends in the chronic illness community, and we've all kind of made this pact with one another where we understand that if one of us texts or calls and the other one can't get back for a period of time, it's okay. It's fine. We get it. We understand that you don't always have that kind of energy. So just really be kind to yourself in that regard, and don't say yes when you know that no is really the right answer. Number 4, you have the right to feel and to have all of your emotions validated. I mean, let's face it, life with chronic illness, life in general is complicated. We live in a complicated world. And when you add chronic illness to the mix, it becomes even more complex. And there's going to be a lot of complicated emotions that come along with that. And for most of my life, I tried to act as though everything were fine, and I was a total people pleaser, and I would smile and act really perky, and I faked my way through it. I sometimes say I believe I deserve an Academy Award for how well I did pretending that I was fine. And even when I was in excruciating pain, I would just pretend as if. There's actually been studies where people who suppress their emotions become not only psychologically depressed and anxiety ridden, but also it does have physiological repercussions. And I'll put a link to a study that I found on that. There are many of them out there, but it's so important to allow yourself to truly feel every emotion that you have. We're going to have a variety of them. There are going to be days when we're happy, and there are going to be plenty of days when we feel sad or anxious or depressed or lonely, and all of these different things. And every single one of those things is fine, whether it is a negative or a positive emotion. Another thing that I went through a period of having toxic positivity is what it's called, which is essentially where you act positive even when the situation doesn't warrant it. And it's like, for example, saying something like, oh, well, it could always be worse, or, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, it's just like, it's really dismissive. And again, those things aren't helpful. It's not helpful to dismiss your own emotions and you're important. Your emotions are important, and everything that you feel in this experience is valid. So please allow yourself, if you need to cry, cry. If you need to scream, scream, maybe privately so you don't get arrested or something. But just let it out. Don't hold back. Let all those emotions come out, and try to find people that you can talk to. I have met so many incredible people in the chronic illness community, and that's kind of one of my goals for this channel too, is to form a community where people can feel like they have a place to come and be understood. So try not to hold your emotions in. Let them out so that they don't manifest into other psychological and physiological things. Another thing I'll say, there is something to be said for positive mindset. And I do believe that having, some sort of optimism or positivity is helpful. And there's a balance though. I mean, there are days when you're going to feel more optimistic and you're going to feel more positive, and things you're going to feel positive about and things that you don't. And it's just important to realize that positive mindset is not a cure-all. It's helpful, yes, but there's a variety of things that it takes to help your situation, and there are things that just aren't fixable, and that's just a matter of accepting it and realigning your expectations. So just wanted to make sure I added that in there. Number 5, you have the right to defend that your illness is not your fault. There are a few cases where people have control over their illness, but there are many more where it isn't something within people's control. In my case, it's a genetic illness. I've had so many people over the course of time tell me, if I just believed hard enough, if I just manifested hard enough, that I could be better. If I stopped eating sugar, or if I ate certain foods, that it would cure me. And believe me, I have tried many of these things, meditating for hours and brain rewiring and all of these different things. And none of it was a cure. I'm not going to say some of those things didn't help. I mean, meditation is scientifically proven to help with lots of things, but it's not your fault. The fact that you may still be sick, and even after you've tried all these things, is not your fault. Please, please, please don't internalize that, okay? It's not healthy to do that to yourself. Okay, at the beginning of this episode, I shared with you that there are 11 parts to the Chronic Illness Warriors Bill of Rights. And I've given you the first 5 and decided that in the interest of having balance in my life and setting an example for all of us with chronic illness, that I'm going to make this into 2 parts, and I will deliver the other 6 items to you within the next week. Deal? All right. But in return, I'm going to ask if you could please go back and think about how you are going to just make one change in your life this week. And if you could comment below if you're watching the YouTube video, I would love to hear how this video impacted you and what change you believe you can make in your life that will make your life a little easier, happier, more relaxed, less stressful, and ultimately make you healthier. So with that, I appreciate you again tuning in. Please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and if you're listening online or on audio, please go ahead and rate and review my podcast. I would love to hear your feedback, and sending you all the love in the world. Mwah.